international break is a great opportunity, ordinarily, one would think, for Nuno Espírito Santo, a new coach at West Ham, to start drilling his new team in the tactics and the way forward that he wants to plot and plan for the rest of the season. Ordinarily, yes. And whilst West Ham are pretty much, well, we're almost rooted to the bottom of the Premier League, you'd think we've got a crap team and no one's going away on international duty. That's not the case. Congo are playing Togo and Sudan. I'm not actually sure if Aaron Wan-Bissaka's been called up. Mavropanos is playing for Greece. I think they're playing Scotland. Max Kilman has not been called up for international duty, unsurprisingly. Diouf's playing for Senegal. Mathias Fernandes is playing under 21s for Portugal. Paqueta's playing for Brazil. Bowen's been called up by England. Of course, you start to go through the team. And by the way, there's more than just that. And you start to realise that actually a lot of the team are not going to be here. So, look, will it be of some benefit to him in terms of the training ground? Yeah, bits and pieces. I guess he'll... even someone like Callum Marshall, he's going off to play for Northern Ireland. Then you've got the Academy Internationals. He will basically have, I'd imagine, about half of the players ordinarily would have, and certainly not an opportunity to really drum his tactics into the squad. So what's he going to be doing? Well, he's going to be hiring some new coaches, but I think what he's going to be doing is putting the feelers out and trying to find out who he can sign in January. Now, one of the things that we were told is a bad thing about Nuno Espírito Santo is his reliance on Jorge Mendes and agents. And I know agents are a dirty word. We shouldn't need them. They take too much money out of the game. We don't like the way that Sullivan does too much business with Will Salthouse, etc., etc. We might need an agent to help us out. And actually, Jorge Mendes being involved might not be a particularly bad thing, because he might help us get a couple of deals over the line. He's got a massive client list, and it may well help. But I do think that he's going to be looking at this now, Nuno. And we've been linked with Joshua Zirkzee at Manchester United and Real Madrid's Endrick just within the last 24 hours. And I wouldn't scoff at either, quite frankly, because depending on what position West Ham are in the league, I'm not sure how attractive we will be by January for signing permanent transfers. It may well be that loans is exactly what we're looking for, and maybe it'll be loans that can make the difference. You look at it, you've got October, November, December, 3 months, right? But even that is not. Because actually, you think about it, that's not 3 months of football, it's 2 months of football, because you've got this international break for 2 weeks, another international break in November. You basically got 2 months worth of football. He's going to know an awful lot more, but he's going to need to start doing his preparations now. And he's going to have to start targeting and highlighting who he wants to bring in. Endrick's a funny one. So Endrick came through at Palmeiras at the same time as Luis Guilherme. Now, I do think this is quite an interesting situation, because you can imagine the phone call. You can imagine Endrick phoning up Luis Guilherme saying, West Ham, what do you think? And Guilherme would say, don't bother, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's not worked out for him at all. I'd imagine that's quite a hard sell. But, yeah, you know, these players are ruthless, and they look after themselves, really, don't they? He can't get in the team. And it was actually a couple of the people. Remember Guti, who used to play for Real Madrid? He was saying yesterday, when he was asked about it, he was saying, well, look, if he can't get into the team on a regular basis by December, then he needs to go out on loan. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of the Spanish dailies, a lot of people in Spain are saying this guy needs to go out. He will be available on loan. And make no mistake about it, when they want to put him out on loan, they will want to put him out at a club that's going to guarantee him game time. There's no point Real Madrid, because you might think, well, hold on, this is such a high-profile youngster, one of the most high-profile youngsters in the world. There's no point in going to West Ham, right? I'm not so sure. In many respects, there's no point in him going to Chelsea. There's no point in him going to Manchester City. I'm not saying those clubs would want him, but Real Madrid, he's not getting game time. They need to guarantee that this guy's going to get game time. Would he get it at West Ham? Look, I don't know, but you have to expect that if we're going to get him, then maybe it's somebody that Nuno wants to look at. I don't know, because we were linked to him. Don't forget, we were linked with him last season. Again, on loan. So I don't know if this is just one of those old stories that gets regurgitated up. But as I say, it's the international break. The people are going to got to write about Summit, right? Look, I'm doing a video about this today, but that's because it's in the news. I think that the slightly more interesting one is Zirkzee. Because you'd look at him and you'd think, well, they couldn't be more different. I think Endrick's a small, diminutive, 5'8", skillful little Brazilian trickster. Zirkzee's a big old lump, isn't he? But he's a big old lump that can run as well. He doesn't lack mobility. I don't think he's been brilliant. Look, let's be fair. Nobody at Manchester United has been brilliant at all. But I think looking at West Ham now, are we going to be able to get brilliant in? I'm not so sure. We might just be looking at competent, quite frankly. And he's never been prolific, Zirkzee. Never been prolific at all. I think he's certainly at Bayern Munich earlier on. I think possibly they got him from Bologna. I might be wrong on it. I think Man United possibly got him from Bologna. I think his debut was really good. He might have even scored on his debut for Man U. And certainly, when I've been looking at Man U over the last few years, it's been Rasmus Højlund that I'd looked at over the last couple of seasons and thought, actually, there is a player in there. He's just not doing particularly well at Man United. But I'm not entirely sure we're going to be able to sign anyone on a permanent basis. And you hope over our next few games we're going to climb up the league. But let's say come December we are still in the bottom three. And, I mean, I was going to say it's a possibility. It is sort of quite likely. Let's be fair. That's where we are at the moment. Not a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise at the moment. You can understand why anyone joining West Ham is going to say, no, actually, I don't fancy it. But this whole thing that it's hard to sign players in January, I do discount it. Some of our best signings at West Ham have been done in January. Jared Bowen was a January signing. Thomas Souček was a January signing. Jesse Lingard was a January signing. It can be done. Absolutely, you can go and sign these players. I just think we may well get to a point where loans are more realistic. And either of these guys on loan would definitely be a big help to West Ham. And look, a striker, a forward, it's got to be done. Look, I argued it. I did the video yesterday. I'm not going to repeat myself on what I said yesterday. But certainly, centre forward is going to be a big, big part of that. Centre back, we're probably going to need one of those as well. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think that would not be surprised at all if Todibo goes out on loan. That's another one. It's going to be hard to sell him. It's going to be hard to sell him at a price that's going to be easy for West Ham to stomach. That's tough. You pay 35 million for someone and then whatever to sell them at 20 million. That's bad enough if that's done over a 3 or 4 year period. To do that in 6 months, whoa, no way. But I do think he'll probably go out on loan, which I think should facilitate somebody else coming in. Not that I want to hear any excuses from the board. I don't want to hear any excuses about PSR, about any of that nonsense. I don't like the way we do business. I don't like the fact that we've had to take out credit facilities and stuff like that. But bearing in mind we have, bloody use them. Get them done. I don't want to hear that we, at the start of this window, the start of this January window, we can't bring players in until we're able to get rid of players. No, I don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. You need to get it done. These are dire straits at the moment. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough couple of weeks for Nuno. And as I say, how much are you going to be able to do on a training ground? Probably not a lot, particularly not until he gets his players back. I think he's going to get his coaches done. I think he's going to get his coaches in. He's going to get his team together, his backroom team. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's sending George Mendes out and saying, right, what can you get me? He'll already know. He will already know the positions in his team that he wants to strengthen. And I think I've just covered them, basically. Would not be surprised if already he's putting the feelers out, seeing who's available. You don't know. Endrick could get into the Real Madrid team. Unlikely. Zirkzee, you just don't know because you don't know what's happening with Amorim. There's another guy whose job is under threat at the moment. I'll take either. I'll take both, quite frankly. West Ham are just going to need to boost that squad. We need more attacking options. And I'm not basing that off the Arsenal game. I know they were tough, and I know that's hopefully not how we're going to play. And let's be fair, we created loads of chances against Everton. In fact, we created more chances than Everton when we played Everton. But we're still going to need players to put the ball in the back of the net. And I'm looking at the moment, and realistically, Jared Bowen's the only player